Hey everyone, it's Saoirse. I'm so excited today. I need to just calm down for a second because I've wanted to do these videos since I started this channel over 2 years ago, and it took me a while to gear myself up, reread the book, put some time into it, and I still feel like I'm not going to do it justice, so I apologize, but I want to talk to you about my favorite book, The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. This is my original copy. And I have a bunch of editions. I suppose I can try and show you now. I just have to kind of budget time in these, just so you know. I'm going to try and do 4 videos for this, and that was one of the big problems with covering this book, is that since it's my favorite and since there's so much to get into in such a short book, it's only 212 pages, there's still so much, 213, there's so much to talk about. And my camera only films for 25 minutes, and I know long videos overwhelm people anyway, so I'm going to cut this into today's video part 1 of the book, and then I think part 2 and 3 together, and then part 4, and then I'm going to do some discussion questions, so the book is sectioned into 4 parts. But let's just take a look at my editions. So, as well as that old one, I have the 20th anniversary. And this one I got in London when I met Stephen Chbosky, and I will tell that story probably in the last video. This one is from Mexico City, and it's just the Spanish translation. And this one is the French translation that I got in Paris. And I'm just kind of obsessed with, like, or maybe this wasn't Paris, somewhere in France, I can't remember. I love getting different editions and different translations, and I do this with my favorite books. And this one I had to get because it's a signed copy, and this was years before I met the author, so this was just one of those Barnes & Noble signed copy things, and I had to have it, and I'm so lucky I got to meet him years later. And then this is another one that is exactly like the same edition as the one that I always reread, and I have no idea where it came from. No clue, it's just, I realized on my shelf I had 2 of the same edition. This is what happens when it's your favorite book. So you've heard me say before, my favorite, this is my favorite modern novel, and my favorite book, I don't know, pre-modern, that doesn't sound right. My favorite classic is Villette by Charlotte Bronte. So I separate those into different categories. I don't really want to compare them, though interestingly, all of my favorite books can be compared, and you know what? I should do a whole video on the themes that are interlaced throughout all of those books, because it's fascinating how over time, and in different places and by different writers, the same themes of being human get brought up, but it always relates to the way in which you have to live during that time period. But like the human condition is always kind of the same in here. Anyway, I'll talk about that later. But yes, favorite modern novel is this one right here. And I'll show you real quick. This is from when I met Stephen Chbosky. He wrote Saoirse, You Are Infinite. I just about died. But yeah, I'll tell that story later, because I just want to jump into part 1 with you. And I might as well read the back. In case you don't know, this is a young adult novel, I guess you'd say, but it deals with so many themes that are considered dangerous for young minds that this has been put on the list of banned books many, many, many times. It's been taken out of schools, all that. It's kind of, I like to think of it as a modern Catcher in the Rye. But yeah, let me read you the back here. Standing on the fringes of life offers a unique perspective, but there comes a time to see what it looks like from the dance floor. This haunting novel about the dilemma of passivity versus passion marks the stunning debut of a provocative new voice in contemporary fiction, The Perks of Being a Wallflower. This is the story of what it's like to grow up in high school. More intimate than a diary, Charlie's letters are singular and unique, hilarious and devastating. We may not know where he lives. We may not know to whom he is writing. All we know is the world he shares. Caught between trying to live his life and trying to run from it, puts him on a strange course through uncharted territory, the world of first dates and mixed tapes, family dramas and new friends, the world of sex, drugs, and the Rocky Horror Picture Show, when all one requires is that perfect song on that perfect drive to feel infinite. Through Charlie, Stephen Chbosky has created a deeply affecting coming-of-age story, a powerful novel that will spirit you back to those wild and poignant roller coaster days known as growing up. Okay. Sip of water. And then we jump in. So you can't see my amazing professional setup here. I have a little table with all of my notes in my journal. So I'm going to read this first page here, and this will show you how Chbosky establishes the writing style right off the bat with this first part. And you can see this book is set in the 90s, hence my look today, August 25th, 1991, and it's all written in letters by Charlie. And by the way, spoilers abound in these videos, most likely. I'm assuming if you're watching them, you've probably read the book, though some people just like to watch and not read the book, but they don't care about spoilers. Whatever floats your boat. I'll just read this first page for you. Dear friend, I am writing to you because she said you listen and understand, and didn't try to sleep with that person at that party, even though you could have. Please don't try to figure out who she is, because then you might figure out who I am, and I really don't want you to do that. I will call people by different names or generic names because I don't want you to find me. I didn't enclose a return address for the same reason. I mean nothing bad by this, honest. I just need to know that someone out there listens and understands and doesn't try to sleep with people even if they could have. I need to know that these people exist. I think you of all people would understand that because I think you of all people are alive and appreciate what that means. At least I hope you do, because other people look to you for strength and friendship, and it's that simple. At least that's what I've heard. So this is my life, and I want you to know that I'm both happy and sad, and I'm still trying to figure out how that could be. That's one of my favorite lines from any book, because I relate to it so much, being both happy and sad. At the same time, trying to figure out how is that possible? How can you explain that to other people? Because we love to put each other in boxes. That's a happy person. That's a really depressed person. You must always feel this way. You cannot change. You can't feel two things at once. It just makes it easier for us to categorize people. But that's not how emotion works. And Charlie spends a lot of time in this book working through his emotions and his lack of emotions, and yeah, we will see. So as usual, I'm just going to read you a lot of lines and then chat about them, and there are so many. I mean, throughout this book, like, I have tabbed just about everything, but I won't read you absolutely everything. So at the beginning, he lets us know that his friend Michael killed himself right before Charlie went to high school. So it sets the scene for us. We know very quickly, within a few sentences, where he's coming from. He's starting out at a new school, in a new stage of his life, having just lost his best friend in a very tragic way. Michael's funeral was strange because his father didn't cry, and 3 months later he left Michael's mom, at least according to Dave at lunchtime. I think about it sometimes. I wonder what went on in Michael's house around dinner and TV shows. Michael never left a note, or at least his parents didn't let anyone see it. Maybe it was problems at home. I wish I knew. It might make me miss him more clearly. It might have made sad sense. I just love that phrase, sad sense. So there's a lot of descriptions in this book, and the language you'll see is very straightforward. It's simple writing, but it's not simple. So the words he's using in the sentence structure come across very easily, but they're used in a way that is unexpected sometimes. Like that phrase, sad sense, I wouldn't have thought to use, and Charlie says it so clearly. Like, this is just the way his mind works, and he's not really having to think about how am I going to phrase this, he just does. And throughout the book, he's always sensing people's underlying issues that cause the behavior that they display. I keep quiet most of the time, and only one kid named Sean really seemed to notice me. He waited for me after gym class and said really immature things like how he was going to give me a swirly, which is where someone sticks your head in the toilet and flushes to make your hair swirl around. He seemed pretty unhappy as well, and I told him so. Then he got mad and started hitting me, and I just did the things my brother taught me to do. My brother is a very good fighter. He seemed pretty unhappy, and I told him so. So when he's being bullied, his first reaction isn't to be confused or upset by it, it's that he feels like he's a real empath, and he feels that these people are not happy, and that's why they're doing the things that they're doing. The reason he's getting beat up is because this person is unhappy. And he does spend a lot more time thinking about other people and their feelings than thinking about his own, which is illustrated here. And he's talking about his sister and this boy that she's seeing. She says, "Yes, he is. And I could see this boy at home doing his homework and thinking about my sister naked. And I could see them holding hands at football games that they do not watch. And I could see this boy throwing up in the bushes at a party house. And I could see my sister putting up with it. And I felt very bad for both of them." So he always feels like he invents all of these images about people and then feels sorry for the people. While at the same time, I think he's running from his own feelings. I mean, there's multiple ways to interpret it, but it's being a wallflower. He is using everybody else's life experience to live sort of vicariously through them. Not in that they are living a great life and he wants to live their life, but he is seeing all of their problems and making that his life. And he is often unsure of what his emotions mean. Which one of these did I want to read? Yeah, like in this paragraph. When I was very little, I remember going to sleep while my brother and sister and Aunt Helen watched Love Boat and Fantasy Island. I could never stay awake when I was that little, and I wish I could, because my brother and sister talk about those moments sometimes. Maybe it's sad that these are now memories, and maybe it's not sad, and maybe it's just the fact that we loved Aunt Helen, especially me, and this was the time we could spend with her. So he does a lot of this, like, having a feeling, and then pulling back from that feeling, and then conjecturing about what could that feeling mean, and is there a way to explain why I feel that way, or am I wrong about it? Like, maybe I'm just completely wrong about my feelings. Which is a dangerous game to get into, because a big thing in this book is just constant overthinking. And this is what I do. I just tear apart every thought and then, like, build each little piece that I've torn off into its own massive dilemma that is, you know, the end of the world, basically. Page 23 to... Oh, okay, I'm going to read this whole page. Uh-oh. And what is this an example of? Well, we'll see. In the hallways, I see the girls wearing the guys' jackets, and I think about the idea of property. And I wonder if anyone is really happy. I hope they are. I really hope they are. Bill looked at me, looking at people. And after class, he asked me what I was thinking about, and I told him. He listened, and he nodded and made affirmation sounds. When I had finished, his face changed into a serious talk face. "Do you always think this much, Charlie? Is that bad?" I just wanted someone to tell me the truth. Not necessarily, it's just that sometimes people use thought to not participate in life. Is that bad? Yes. I think I participate, though. Don't you think I am? Well, are you dancing at these dances? I'm not a very good dancer. Are you going on dates? Well, I don't have a car, and even if I did, I can't drive because I'm 15, and anyway, I haven't met a girl I like except for Sam, but I am too young for her, and she would always have to drive, which I don't think is fair. Bill smiled and continued asking me questions. Slowly, he got to problems at home, and I told him about the boy who makes mixtapes hitting my sister because my sister only told me not to tell Mom or Dad about it, so I figured I could tell Bill. He got this very serious look on his face after I told him, and he said something to me I don't think I will forget this semester or ever. Charlie, we accept the love we think we deserve. I just stood there, quiet. Bill patted my shoulder and gave me a new book to read. He told me everything was going to be okay. Okay. So I thought that whole page right there is, you can see all the things I tabbed. It's worth looking at that entire thing because this conversation is so important. The fact that he has this role model that he can count on to talk to about how he feels about things that are going on at home, and that this teacher can act as like this filter for Charlie, so Charlie can say the things that he would normally say, and then Bill shows him what they mean, or it's hard to describe. But I feel like I had teachers like this, and it was very important for me to have them, to be able to work through the things that, these thoughts that I thought were just crazy thoughts. To have somebody who maybe, like, you know, maybe Bill is very similar to Charlie. Maybe he was a lot like him when he was younger, and so he's able to talk to Charlie, having already experienced everything that he has, and come out the other side. Yeah. Oh, and then the next thing I'm going to read continues on from there. I usually walk home from school because it makes me feel like I've earned it. What I mean is that I want to be able to tell my kids that I walked to school like my grandparents did in the old days. It's odd that I'm planning this considering I've never had a date, but I guess that makes sense. It usually takes me an extra hour or so to walk as opposed to taking the bus, but it's worth it when the weather is nice and cool like it is today. So this is over and over and over again in the book, examples of Charlie not living in the moment. So he's always thinking about the future, what he's going to tell his kids about how he walked to school. And this is the reason I love this book, and this is why I cry so much every time I read it, because I completely see myself in that. Anytime I do anything, I'm not really doing it. I'm not really there with the situation and my feelings. I'm somewhere in the future or in another dimension or something where I'm thinking about the effect of this. This applies to everything. I think about people that I love. Every time I say something to them, is that the last thing I'm going to say to them? And how much each moment matters because of the future moments where I'll look back at this moment. I'm not thinking about this moment, I'm thinking about looking back at it. And that's what Charlie's always doing. So there's a lot on participation versus overthinking. So here's a little bit. I'm sorry I haven't written to you in a couple of weeks, but I've been trying to participate, like Bill said. It's strange because sometimes I read a book and I think I am the people in the book. And also, when I write letters, I spend the next 2 days thinking about what I figured out in my letters. I do not know if this is good or bad. Nevertheless, I am trying to participate. It's funny, the more you try to think about your participation, am I doing this right? Then you just fall into the overthinking spiral. Let's move on to page 32 to 33. No. What am I... Sometimes I just write notes and I have no idea what I'm trying to... Oh yeah, okay, I found it. I'll learn how to edit. There is a feeling that I had Friday night after the homecoming game that I don't know if I will ever be able to describe, except to say that it is warm. Sam and Patrick drove me to the party that night, and I sat in the middle of Sam's pickup truck. Sam loves her pickup truck because I think it reminds her of her dad. The feeling I had happened when Sam told Patrick to find a station on the radio, and he kept getting commercials, and a really bad song about love that had the word baby in it, and then more commercials. And finally he found this really amazing song about this boy, and we all got quiet. Sam tapped her hand on the steering wheel. Patrick held his hand outside the car and made air waves, and I just sat between them. After the song finished, I said something. I feel infinite. And Sam and Patrick looked at me like I said the greatest thing they ever heard, because the song was that great and because we all really paid attention to it. 5 minutes of a lifetime were truly spent, and we felt young in a good way. I have since bought the record, and I would tell you what it was, but truthfully, it's not the same unless you're driving to your first real party and you're sitting in the middle of a pickup with two nice people when it starts to rain. I love it so much, this theme of being infinite, because it's like he's always stuck. He's always stuck in either misremembering his past or trying to focus on how he'll feel in his future and how other people will feel in their future about all the things they did in the past. And for one moment he gets to feel infinite. He is of all times. He's every version of himself in that moment. And nothing that has happened or will happen matters. It's just then, the very present, and that 5 minutes of a lifetime were truly spent, and we felt young in a good way. Truly spending time, truly being present in one moment, that's really all that I can ask for. And it's difficult to attain that, for sure. Oh my goodness, my cat is breaking through the door. Okay. This is when Charlie's at the party, where we get, I think this is the first time we hear the part of the title. You never hear the whole title, which is interesting. Bob nodded his head. Patrick then said something I don't think I'll ever forget. He's a wallflower. And Bob really nodded his head, and the whole room nodded their head, and I started to feel nervous in the Bob way, but Patrick didn't let me get too nervous. He sat down next to me. You see things. You keep quiet about them. And you understand. I didn't know that other people thought things about me. I didn't know that they looked. I was sitting on the floor of a basement of my first real party between Sam and Patrick, and I remembered that Sam introduced me as her friend to Bob, and I remembered that Patrick had done the same for Brad, and I started to cry, and nobody in that room looked at me weird for doing it, and then I really started to cry. Bob raised his drink and asked everyone to do the same, to Charlie, and the whole group said, to Charlie. I didn't know why they did that, but it was very special to me that they did, especially Sam, especially her. I love that part so much, I didn't know other people thought things about me. Oh, the amount of times I've thought that. Like the fact that other people, it really freaks me out a lot. Like when somebody tells me so-and-so said something about me, even if it's a good thing, I'm still like, what? I exist in the minds of other people? I thought I just, left the room and then that was it. Like nobody would think of me again. And when people call me their friend, I've always had a really hard time making friends, especially as a kid, being bullied and all that. It makes it so special and shocking when people consider me a friend. Yeah. Anyway, Patrick started driving really fast, and just before we got to the tunnel, Sam stood up, and the wind turned her dress into ocean waves. When we hit the tunnel, all the sound got scooped up into a vacuum, and it was replaced by a song on the tape player. A beautiful song called Landslide. When we got out of the tunnel, Sam screamed this really fun scream, and there it was, downtown. Lights on buildings and everything that makes you wonder. Sam sat down and started laughing. Patrick started laughing. I started laughing. And in that moment, I swear we were infinite. So that's the end of part 1. And I will stop there. My goodness, we are always pushing it to the 25-minute limit. Yeah, I love that ending of the first part. This is when he's really building up these friendships that he never expected to have. So I think he's doing what I do, which is that you make a new friendship and then you spend a lot of the time in the friendship going, I can't believe I'm really in this friendship. Is this really happening to me? More so than just participating. And we will continue with hopefully parts 2 and 3 in the next video, because I think I can fit it all in there. We will see. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.